down in this hole, there it is a Phillips head screw. And that is the carb balance adjustment. All it really is another little set screw like this one that sets the throttle position on one carburetor, which is independent from this one. They turn together, but the stop is independent, so there's a little differential. And all you have to do is get your long screwdriver down in here at an angle and adjust that screw to achieve a balance once you've got your two gauges hooked up. Okay, here, this is just looking at the anatomy of these carburetors. You can see that this is the control right here for the enrichment valve. This is the cable that goes and pulls the needle in and out for the enrichment valve. And right below that is this vacuum fitting. And that goes up to the petcock, and that puts a vacuum on this diaphragm that opens the petcock. That is what you disconnect in order to connect one of your vacuum gauges. On the other carburetor, walk around here, you'll see the same setup. Here is the, get some light on it. This is the enrichment valve cable right here, and right next to it is the vacuum fitting. The vacuum, and this vacuum hose is disconnected and plugged. I don't know why, but that goes right there to that fitting right next to the enrichment cable. So that's the vacuum fitting for our other gauge, but I believe that it's supposed to be hooked up to operate something in the emission control system. So I have to look at my diagrams to see where it goes. But float control, float boost, air control valve 2, intake manifold 2 into one end of the purge valve, one of the air control valve, one of the purge valve, and I don't know, gee many Christmas. We got a control line here on the air control valve, and we got a control line here on the purge valve. So, following them along, everything is connected but this. And I don't know why this is plugged like this. Anyway, I think what we're going to do before we take this apart is warm the engine up some, get our vacuum gauges hooked up, and see if they are functioning, and take it from there. Well, while I'm charging my camera again, I'll show you the little vacuum valve setup that we got here. El Cheapo from Amazon. But anyway, we got them hooked up to a T, and we got that hooked up to the Mighty Vac. And what I did was had these on the bench and got them adjusted so that they agree. You just take these, unscrew these covers, and this little silver screw here is the calibrating screw, and you just put them on the vacuum pump and adjust them until they read the same thing. And luckily they also seem to read the same thing as the Mighty Vac does. Well, it says about 8, and that says about 8, and the two needles agree with each other, and that's the important thing. rather than any absolute accuracy. What's important is that the two meters will agree, and otherwise you can't balance your carburetors. If there's a disparity between the meters, there'll be a disparity between the carburetors when you set them. These are little damping valves, little cheapo valves, and you just crank those down until the fluctuations are minimized. And this T did not come with a set, but it's actually a T out of a drip irrigation system. This is 5mm tubing, and it seemed to fit just fine. So that's what we're going to use, and we got to go warm up the motorcycle real good and mate these to the carburetors and get the vacuum set on the control valve and the fuel valve so that it'll run. And once it's warmed up, we can check the agreement of the carburetor balance, and we'll try dicking with it if it's out and see if that improves the drivability. Fortunately, the front wheels off the motorcycle will be for a few days, so we can't check the drivability till we get that back. Okay, I've got one gauge hooked up here. I've got the vacuum gauge hooked up to this T operating the gas valve and the air valve, and I'm just holding a vacuum on it with the Mighty Vac. This does not change with the engine vacuum, just a vacuum on there to keep those valves open. I've got the other valve hooked up to this tube that was plugged up, and you can see what happens if you disconnect it. It just starts to run like shit. So now the engine's been running for 10 or 15 minutes, and the fan has cycled off and on a few times. So compare these gauges. The one on the right says 5, 6, 7 and a hair, and this one says 6.5, and the allowable difference is about a needle width. So they're out of balance. So now I'm going to take my long screwdriver and get in there and see if I can get them to balance up. What I'm finding is that in order to get decent throttle response, I have to have these things balanced close to 4,000, between 3,500 and 4,000, and they won't quite agree down here at idle, but they're pretty close. But otherwise, still getting that dead throttle response, and I think that's a problem with the darn pilot jet adjustment. May have some spark plug issues or some idle mixture issues, but I think the throttle response seems to be pretty good. So I think we've probably done good here.